please proceed forward. Assume the position, state your name, rank, speak your piece. Yeah, I'll take one.
Good morning, Chairman Sandoval, Chairman Minar, and members of the respective committees. My name is Matt McGallis. I am the Acting Secretary of the Illinois Department of Transportation. Today I am joined by Paul Lodi, our Director of Highways, and Tracy Sisk, our Bureau Chief of Programming. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss working together to improve our state's infrastructure. In Illinois, we have almost 16,000 miles of state highways and almost 8,000 state-owned bridges. We travel 108 billion miles annually on our road system. We have 750 aviation facilities, including the world's busiest airport. We have one of the country's most robust transit systems in America. We are also the freight hub of the nation. And our ports and waterways are essential to our transit system. Unfortunately, as you can tell, traveling around our state, our infrastructure continues to deteriorate faster than we can maintain it. We have a large percentage of our assets that are getting to the end of their useful lives. This includes the majority of interstates that were constructed in the 60s and a large portion of our bridges that were constructed in the 1970s. We currently have 79 million square feet of state bridges requiring maintenance and updates. That is over 730 state bridges. We also have a need over the next 10 years, additional funding of $13 to $15 billion for our highways. That is just maintenance. We also have a need for capacity that is in the billions of dollars. We have a need of $250 million in state funds for aviation, and that does not include the necessary federal funds, nor does that include O'Hare or Midway airports. Public transit is in need of $19.1 billion. Passenger rail maintenance is approximately $800 million. And freight rail is in need of approximately $4 billion. Also, our locks and dams are in needs of hundreds of millions of dollars. Our funding needs are great, but in order for us to drive our economy and our great state forward, we must invest in the maintenance and expansion of our multimodal system. And we must have a sustainable revenue source for our infrastructure needs. I'm prepared to discuss and answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Secretary McGallis, how long have you been at the helm?
I have been in this position since January.
January. You were previously in state government?
Yes.
Okay.
I previously served as the Chief of Staff of IDOT for the last 4 years.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Once again. So, recently we woke up one morning over in Chicago with the Lakeshore Drive, is that US 41? Tell me a little bit about what happened there and how that is perhaps symbolic or a snapshot of these 730 state bridges that you talked about just a minute ago.
Sure. I am not an engineer, but I think we could all tell by looking at the photos and the videos of that particular incident that was a major structural failure on the bridge. And that we worked with the city of Chicago. They did a great job of getting the Lakeshore Drive back open.
Mr. Lodi, you're an engineer. You want to talk? Was that the state's failure?
Well, it's evidence of the situation that we're in right now relative to our revenue situation. We have, as Secretary McGallis alluded to, we have maintenance needs that far exceed our financial means currently. You know, just for the record, we have a very robust system of inspections on all of our bridges. Some bridges, depending on their situation, are inspected more frequently. If we identify specific concerns on a specific structure, then those bridges are inspected more frequently to make sure that they can maintain serviceable for the traveling public. In this particular case, it was a situation where the city of Chicago was doing the inspections on this bridge, and it's an unfortunate reality of the situation we're in right now with respect to our with respect to our infrastructure. It's just old and tired.
So Secretary McGallis, if you had a chance to or started the discussion with mass transit and freight rail and the other components of our transportation industry in Illinois, have you convened them yet to talk about their capital needs and assess their needs?
So I have not personally. We are always in constant contact with our partners regarding their needs. We have multi-year plans that we work with them on, and we're constantly in talks with them.
Will you be convening a meeting of the CTA and PACE and Metra and all the other downstate transit entities to discuss?
Yes, absolutely. We will be working with our partners throughout this process with our infrastructure needs.
But are you going to meet with them to have a conversation,
Sure.
a cup of coffee?
Yeah, we would absolutely meet with them. Like I said, our staff meets with them on a regular basis.
Okay. Okay. We had a hearing on just the other night concerning the MBE participation of, I'd like you to submit the tail of the tape on your success rate of awarding MBE dollars over at IDOT over the last 4 years.
Our DBE?
Yeah, your DB, right. So you don't need to tell me the numbers, but I'd like,
Sure.
if you can give me a report on that.
Yes, we were going to provide you with documentation based on the questions at our last hearing. We're still compiling that.
Okay. Senator McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Good morning. Chairman Sandoval mentioned the structure on Lakeshore Drive, and my colleague Senator McConkey mentioned the two spans of the Desplaines, the Interstate 80 Desplaines River Bridge in Joliet, and that the Tribune revealed a couple of weeks ago that one span has a rating of 6 out of 100 and the other has a rating of 7 out of 100. Is there a red zone in the rating system? That is, if a bridge is rated under 20, does that indicate imminent danger?
Yeah, Senator, I could talk on that generally. We also have our Bureau Chief of Bridges and Structures in the room, so if we want to talk in detail, we can bring Carol Pusey up. Generally speaking, for that sufficiency rating, of course, that is an indicator to us that there's a grave concern. However, that sufficiency rating is made up by not only the bridge structural condition, but it's also made up of the daily traffic goes over the bridge, the geometry of the bridge, the width of the shoulders, et cetera. So the sufficiency rating alone is not something that we would raise a red flag for us. Now, that bridge is specifically inspected on a very regular basis, and we recognize the concerns on that structure. We are in study mode currently in the middle of a phase 1 study. We recognize the need there, and it's something that that we're keeping a very close eye on. We know that the public and the media have raised a concern about that, but we would not have that bridge open to traffic if we did not think it was safe.
Right. I appreciate this conversation. So did I understand you say correctly that the sufficiency rating is based not just on the bridge per se, but on the traffic count, and other factors?
That is correct. There's other factors that go into that sufficiency rating.
Okay. And does that all-inclusive rating on a structure, does that inform your prioritization of projects?
It does indeed, yes.
Could you explain that, please?
Well, so as we develop our priorities for any project, in addition to the structural condition, we want to invest the limited resources that we have where there's the greatest need. That need could be related to safety. We recognize there's been accidents out on that structure. It's also related to congestion and traffic. If there's a capacity project or problem on any structure or stretch of roadway, that would elevate that particular segment up in our priority list. So, in general, the sufficiency rating does have an impact on our priorities, no doubt.
Okay. So could you speak specifically to those structures?
I think I would, at this point, would like to defer to our Bureau Chief of Structures, Carl Pusey, to answer those specific questions. So if you don't mind.
I don't want to dominate the hearing. With the indulgence of the co-chairs, if we
You
wish
may.
to.
You may proceed.
All right. Thank you.
Carl, if you don't mind, yeah.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Carl Pusey, the IDOT Bureau Chief of Bridges and Structures. I was wondering if I could get your question again.
Okay. How soon will how soon will these two bridges with ratings of 6 and 7 be repaired?
In the spring, there is a significant repair that is planned to address specifically structural steel repairs that are the main issue with the condition of the bridge. So for the short term, we do have a project that's coming up that will address those most urgent structural needs.
So that's the replacement of some beams and 1,000
Yes.
bearings, right?
Yeah, there'll be steel plating, replacement of certain steel members, that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I welcome that. After that work is completed, what do you anticipate the ratings will be?
The condition ratings will go up. The sufficiency rating, we would have to get back to you on that and let you know what that would be, because like Director Lodi said, it's a combination of many factors that goes into that sufficiency rating.
Okay, and one more time, so I understand. So is there a condition rating and a separate sufficiency rating?
That's correct.
Okay, and the 6 and the 7 are which?
I believe what you're referring to, the 6 and the 7 out of 100, that's the sufficiency rating. And that item includes the other things like ADT and geometry and things like that.
So sufficiency rating is multiple factors.
Correct.
Condition rating is the bridge per se?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us the condition rating of these bridges?
The condition ratings are poor currently. We use a 0 to 9 scale for assigning condition ratings to the major components of the bridge.
Okay.
And those conditions are poor, but.
Poor, did you say?
Yes. However, when a bridge reaches that condition, we do specific calculations that verify the strength of the bridge in its current condition and that it's safe to carry traffic. So we don't just rate it poor and then walk away and cross our fingers. We know that when it's rated poor, we do specific measurements on the bridge to see how much corrosion there's been. We update our structural calculations to make sure that it's strong enough that it can safely carry traffic, and that has been done on this bridge.
Has or has not?
It has,
Okay.
yes, it
All right.
has been done.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Leader DeWitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of all of the concerns I've heard expressed from folks regarding various aspects of IDOT problems, I think this I-80 bridge is the one I've heard the most about. And I can't think of a better poster child for this particular hearing that we're all sitting through today that this may represent. So the planned work for this spring on this particular bridge would be considered maintenance work?
Yeah, yes, it would be considered maintenance work.
And how old is this bridge?
It was built in the 60s, I believe. And
Okay.
it has had other work done along the way, but it was built in the 60s, I believe.
Okay, and so this maintenance work, can you put a price tag on what, you may have mentioned it, I may have missed it.
The isolated steel repairs and bearing repairs that are going to be done this spring, I believe is between $5 and $6 million.
Okay,
The projects that Director Lodi alluded to that are in study for, replacement of the bridges, obviously that will be a much bigger price tag for a major rehabilitation or a replacement of the bridge.
okay, and is a major rehabilitation or a replacement of this bridge included in your multi-year plan at this point?
It is not currently in our multi-year plan because we're still in the study phase. We're in what we call the phase 1 engineering stage where we're assessing the characteristics of what would be required.
Right, environmental aspects, everything else
Yes,
that
sir.
goes along with it. So, what is the likely life expectancy of this particular bridge?
Go ahead, Carl.
Are we there yet?
We're getting close. I mean,
Okay.
our inspections have been reduced to, our routine inspections have been reduced to a 1-year interval rather than the standard 2-year interval. And then we also have special inspections that are on a 3-month interval to look at specific areas that we need to keep an eye on. So I can't give you an exact time, but, timing and the need for funding to address this, along with many other things, that is the concern.
Is it a safe assumption this bridge will appear on a list of significant projects that will be a part of this initiative that we're pulling together?
Yes, it's fair to say that this bridge is one of our top priorities in terms of structures that we have in the state.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Senator Bertino Torrent.
This is for Mr. Fuji. This is a quick follow-up to Senator McGuire's. Understanding that sufficiency and conditions are different, can you give me the condition rating? You said it was poor, but it's from 0 to 9. Can you give me the rating for I-80?
Yeah, I should clarify that. If you're wanting to zero in on the specifics of the word that goes with each one of those numbers, I was using poor in a very general sense. But I-80 does have one component, the superstructure on one of the two dual structures is a 2. And the exact wording that goes along with that out of our federal coding guide, we have to report these numbers to the FHWA, and the wording needs to match. It is considered critical.
And can you help me to understand, because people hear these words and it causes panic, but then yet I hear that if you believe that it was a safety issue, we would be closing the bridge. At what point do you get there? I mean, what would cause a bridge to be closed? I mean, again, out of 9, we hear 2. Do you have to be at 0?
Yeah, it's somewhat difficult to answer because the inspectors in the field, depending on the amount of corrosion that exists, that's what determines whether it's an 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That determines what the number is that they assign. But a lot of those instances of corrosion, they don't occur in the most critical structural areas. So one particular item of corrosion may not cause the bridge to be weak. So we take all of the information from the inspectors that they've documented the corrosion, and we update our calculations to determine the true strength of the bridge and verify that it can safely carry traffic.
Thank you.
Leader McConkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was in a meeting yesterday in which it was stated that we are currently matching every available federal dollar that can be matched in regards to transportation funds. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
Okay,
I'm Tracy Sisk, and I'm the Bureau Chief of Programming.
great. Thank you. So you're here saying we need to do additional investment, but if we're currently matching all the funds that we can from the federal government, are you saying that the projects that need to be done, we would have to do then with 100% state money? Are there other types of programs that, or things that we can utilize? So in other words, the additional investment, are we all on our own? Are we paying 100% of the tab that would otherwise be partially supported or even majority supported by, through federal government or other means?
Yes, we're utilizing every federal fund that we can get our hands on, and we're able to match them currently, but we do need additional state revenue to do the additional improvements that are needed on bridges like we're discussing, because we can't maintain what we have now.
So if we make an investment, a major investment, we have to rebuild a major bridge or something like that, are we able at some point when federal funds become later to recoup funds, kind of after the fact? So we make an upfront investment and then more federal funds become available, and are we able to recoup then some funds?
Yes, that is possible. We do something called advanced construction, which is we make every project that we do federally eligible ahead of time, so that we can switch it to federal if funds become available.
Because there's been talk of a federal infrastructure project, and Lord knows if that'll occur or not. And so I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're going to maximize any opportunity that we have to be able to get those funds.
Yes, we always make sure we use all our federal funds, because if we can show that we're using our formula funds that we get every year, that puts us in good position when they give out discretionary funds.
And then there has been some discussion as to whether or not we should change or toll some roads that already exist. There's been discussions of 55, there's been discussions of I-80. My understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the federal law prohibits the tolling of existing capacity, that we can only toll new capacity unless there's a change in federal law. Is that correct?
I don't know anything about
That is correct.
Okay. And so if we decided that this would be a revenue stream that we would want to tap into, let's say tolling, of all the different tolling options that's been suggested, I think tolling I-80 is the one that perhaps makes the most sense, because we can raise the gas tax. We can even put a surplus on diesel because of the weight of those trucks. However, how many truckers then going across Illinois are going to fill up in Iowa, drive across the state, cause damage to the roads, and then fill up again in Indiana, where it's less expensive in either place? And so what you're saying is we would need to have discussions with perhaps our members of Congress about trying to get some sort of exemption in to be able to do something along that line.
That is correct. And just to expand on that just a little bit, as an example, one of the proposals that we've had on I-55 is what we call these managed lanes. So that would be new capacity, and that would allow us to toll that new capacity, but we would not be able to toll the existing capacity on the freeway there, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Oberweis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had conversations last year with Randy Blankenhorn, and then actually had a meeting with IDOT personnel in the Sugar Grove mayor's office regarding the overpass, which I mentioned to you yesterday, over I-56. That is a bridge that is literally falling apart and crumbling, and there is an argument between the village of Sugar Grove, the Sugar Grove Township, and IDOT over whose responsibility it is to fix it. But I was assured by IDOT, well, it's a temporary problem, don't worry about it too much, because we're going to be building a new bridge over 56 beginning this spring. I have heard rumors that now that plan may be in jeopardy. Can you update us on that situation? Because that's a pretty serious mess, and it's right by my home, and it's literally is falling apart.
Senator, I am aware of that generally. I would say this, that we recognize the condition of that structure. We also, we have had some conversations with the local public agency there in terms of whose responsibility it is. We are not walking away from that project, just to be clear. However, we have had some, we've had some speed bumps along the way in terms of project development moving toward replacement of that structure. Some of the issues that we've ran into in development of that project have caused us some delays with land acquisition and the like. So it's likely that we're going to have to do some maintenance on the deck of that structure in the short term before a replacement project can be implemented.
Well, I have to tell you, I was told by IDOT that the land acquisition was all done, that they were all set, they were ready to go. Something has changed?
Yeah, and I don't know the exact details of that, but we're working on a briefing currently that we'll be happy to get you a copy of in the next few days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Secretary McGillis, you know, just several years ago, I passed legislation, cost-benefit analysis legislation, which required the Illinois Department of Transportation to make an assessment of whether or not, before you spend a dollar, whether or not there was cost-benefit to either paving or constructing, right? Are you aware if your agency uses, follows those guidelines or that state law?
I am not aware, but I'm sure Mr. Lodi can fill us in.
Yes, Chairman, we do. We do have a mechanism in our project development process where we look at different types of pavement and the life cycle cost of those to make a decision whether we're going with concrete, for example, versus asphalt, if that makes sense. But that is done on every new pavement replacement project that we do. Because,
you know, I'll quite honest with you, I don't necessarily believe you guys have adhered to that great state law that Senator Sandoval passed some years ago. I think you guys kicked it to the curb because, quite honestly, you know, I think all we've had is a major asphalt program in the state of Illinois over the last 10 years. There's statements that have made by agency officials that have said that you know, we have just implemented a maintenance program in the state. Congestion is at an all-time high in Illinois. Less than 10% of our investment goes into expansion of any highways or roads in Illinois. And so what makes me believe that any investment, any further investment into our highway infrastructure is going to relieve any congestion? Or are we just going to continue paving more roads? These are statements from your agency officials.
Yeah, Senator, I'd like to address that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tracy because I know it's near and dear to her heart. One of the things that that's relevant to the committee here today is that we, as an agency, have an obligation with the Federal Highway Administration to implement what they call a transportation asset management program. The Federal Highway Administration has certain rules in place that basically require us to maintain our national highway system at a certain level and allocate a portion of our highway program to maintain our existing infrastructure at a level of acceptability. So because of those obligations, we're working on on this transportation asset management program with the feds, and Tracy can speak more detail about it. But one of the things that we do, even if we contemplate a capital bill going into the future, we will have to have a portion of that capital program that includes maintenance because it's a requirement of FHWA.
What's the portion of your, if we were to engage into a new capital bill, what's the portion of IDOT dollars that will go into new road construction? Concrete.
Chairman, that's a very difficult question to answer because it's really a function of the size of the capital bill that we end up with. As Secretary McGillis talked at his opening remarks, we have on the order of $13 billion of maintenance needs over the next 10 years. So, you know, my point of view as a steward of the state's infrastructure would be we need to continue to maintain the existing infrastructure that we have, or we're going to end up with more situations like you talked about on North Lakeshore Drive. If we're not investing in maintenance of our existing infrastructure first and foremost, we're going to run into more of those problems. So that's critical for us. We also recognize the need for, we do have capacity problems across the state. But to be able to quantify currently what portion of any capital money that we get would go to maintenance versus new construction is very, very difficult for us.
Just for the record, Director Lodi, what's the life expectancy of an asphalt road versus a new concrete road?
Well, again, that's, you know, I'm going to speak like an engineer, I'm afraid, because that's a difficult question to answer. It really depends on, we have many different treatments that we put on our roadways depending on the condition of those roadways. For example, when we do an asphalt overlay, that might be expected to last, you know, 10 to 12 years as opposed to a full depth asphalt replacement project that we would expect to last 25 years. It's really a function of, you know, we have a certain, we have a finite amount of money, and our charge is to invest those dollars as best as possible to make our infrastructure last as long as possible.
I'd like to see a report in regards to your 5-year plan, your highway maintenance plan or highway plan. I'd like you to identify which ones would be new road construction or reconstruction or construction versus just pavement. Again, I want to reiterate one of the noted engineering associations said that in a recent article said that overlaying with additional asphalt or other patching of concrete simply doesn't address the story of decay of our system. And so I'm concerned that we're just throwing good money after bad. We just keep on throwing money and asphalt on our highways, and that does nothing to ease the congestion or add capacity to our highway system. Are you, what about other innovations? Do you foresee managed lanes? Are you going on the record today saying that Bruce Rauner was correct in advocating the I-55 managed lane program down I-55? That is a much needed improvement?
I would say that is something that is certainly an option in order to fund expansion opportunities. That is something that we should look at.
Do you believe that this would be the managed lane program on I-55 will be a priority of the Pritzker administration?
I know it'll be part of the discussion. I can't speak for them.
Would you be recommending that it be included in the capital bill?
I think that as those discussions go on, it's certainly an opportunity for us to increase capacity through a unique funding source.
Besides I-55 expansion, are there other much-needed expansions in northern Illinois or southern Illinois, for that matter, that you would see that it needs attention?
Absolutely.
Like which ones?
I don't know if I want to get into any specific projects, but we do, there is no doubt we have an unlimited need for increasing capacity in the Chicagoland area and other areas of the state. 290? Certainly.
I-57?
Pretty much most of our interstates in the Chicagoland area need capacity improvements.
Okay. Sound like Ronald Reagan. We just don't remember. But I get it. I understand. Senator Leader DeWitt.
Quick question. I'm assuming we'll start hearing more about specific projects as we start visiting with the various district offices as part of this process. Can you give us some idea of maybe some of the direction you're asking them to take and some of the parameters you're asking them to provide us as part of this process? I mean, to the point, will they be coming into us in these hearings with specific lists of projects that they would like to see considered as part of this process? What direction are you giving them as far as submitting their issues?
Yes, that's a good question. So each of our district office has a laundry list of projects that they look up and down. What we call a condition rating survey for our pavements that rate them numerically in terms of their condition. And so what the district office do, that's a lot of times how they prioritize their maintenance projects, kind of like we talked about previously on the bridges and sufficiency rating. Their priorities are going to be based on, you know, condition of existing bridges and pavements, as well as traffic and safety issues on those particular segments of roads and bridges. And with those anecdotal data, then they develop their priority list. As we've talked about, and just to be very clear, I could promise you that the list of projects that we have is going to be a lot deeper than the revenue that we have to fund them.
Okay, and just to follow up, coming out of local government, we always followed the multi-year plan as the Bible for what was happening in our particular areas or districts. Is it fair to say we'll start seeing some of those multi-year projects included in some of those submissions that they'll be making, or are those projects that are already in process that may be excluded to add additional projects to the list?
We have an ongoing multi-year program where we have projects in the queue that kind of work their way up to the annual year, and every year we add new projects to that multi-year program, However, there's also every year we have projects that we wish we could add to that program that we can't. So yes, you will see new projects added to the program, but the list of new projects that we're being able to add to our program every year, it gets smaller and smaller just because the revenue that we have, we looked at the spending power of the dollar that we have is reduced by over 90%, over the last several decades. So, the dollars that we do have just don't go nearly as far as they used to.
One last question. So, Secretary McGallis, follow up on Leader DeWitt's question about the 5-year plan. Don't you think it's a great opportunity just to kind of throw that 5-year plan out the window and start anew? If something's been on the books for 10 years, maybe it's not needed anymore. Why should it stay in the queue? We just kind of like, let's reassess our 5-year maintenance program or a 5-year construction program, and let's start anew. Let's reestablish our needs.
Yeah, we currently do that. We do look at our projects over the life plan of the proposed projects, and there are projects that come off of that list, and there are projects that are added onto it. It also depends on where they are and what phase they're in when they become part of the annual program.
When will you be resubmitting your 5-year plan to the legislature?
Tracy, you want to address that? I think we have a obligation.
Well, it's mandated for the first Wednesday in April.
Okay. Will we be receiving that on time this year?
We will do our best to meet that target date.
We'd like to get that sooner than later, to be quite honest with you, because it would help us with the planning purposes and our discussions and deliberations on the capital bill. I just for the record, I think we're going to follow up with this IDOT portion of the hearing in one of our other stations throughout the state of Illinois, but we're going to invite the FHWA. I'm really, I don't know if they're in the house today. The FHWA in the house today? Yeah. Those folks from Washington, they seem to set the rules, provide the oversight, but don't provide any cash, right? That's a real big problem. And so, and maybe it's even worth calling some of our congressional leaders and our senators that sit up, in Washington and get their take on where's the bacon, right? You're just nodding your heads. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'll hand over the gavel to Chairman Menard.
All right, thank you, gentlemen and lady, for your testimony. Next, we're going to hear from the Illinois Community College Board. Deputy Director for Legislative and External Affairs, Matthew Berry, is here with us